but it's nice. All right. We are live. Welcome to WVEA Ed Talks, learning from the community. And tonight I have two of my favorite educators because it is Teacher Appreciation Week. So I want to appreciate these teachers, all of them, but these two I've known for about 3 years now. And why is that? Because there was something going on at the Capitol that these, hellraisers had a big part of, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I wanted them to kind of introduce themselves. So we're going to go ladies first. Nicole, tell everybody who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name's Nicole McCormick, and I'm from Mercer County. I've actually lived in Mercer most of my life. I currently live in Athens, like right next to Concord University, which is where I met my spouse, who's also a teacher, who recently earned his doctorate last March. And if you ever decide to get a doctorate, have a healthy constitution. It takes a while. Well, we have 4 children, and I think during the course of him getting his doctorate, we had 3 of them. So it's a long process, but you can do it. And then you get to be called doctor forever, except not really the good kind, I guess. But I teach music, and I am the president of the Mercer County Education Association. And I admire Jenny and everything that she does for our community and for our students, and to speak out for parents. And I have had the opportunity to work with her because we're all advocates of West Virginia public education. And Jay is a dear friend of mine, and we work together, and we are really active in our local unions and in our caucus, and we're both running for state union office. I'm running for vice president of WVEA.
Awesome. Jay, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name is Jay O'Neill. I'm an 8th grade West Virginia studies teacher here in Kanawha County. I've been very active in my union, kind of like Nicole was saying, and was super active in the 2018 strike. I started a Facebook group in the fall of 2017 that kind of exploded, and it turns out that a lot of teachers and a lot of public employees we're having a lot of issues, and a lot of people were more in agreement than we realized, and one thing led to another, and there you go, we're out on strike. So anyway, yeah, I'm a teacher. I'm running for WVEA president, and I'm just happy to be here to talk about education and everything else.
Thank you. Yeah, so education. A lot of things going on right now with COVID-19, a lot of changes you all have had to make. And I want to thank you all, teachers everywhere, for just, stepping in there because there wasn't a plan and doing what you could. And, I've said it before on past broadcasts. I mean, my daughter, the teachers, they have been in constant contact with her. They've called me. The principal has called me a couple times and said, "Hey, just checking. Are you all right? Is everything okay? Do you need anything?" So I'm really appreciative of everything you all do as educators. How have you been adjusting? Like Nicole, especially because you have kids at home and you're also a teacher, and it's music on top of things. So what's your day like?
It's been a rough, jumbled up mess. I teach currently 6th through 8th grade, and all of my classes are very performance based. I have even my general music classes. We learn ukulele and hand chimes, and I have a handbell ensemble and a show choir, which is the singing and the dancing, and a traditional choir. So trying to figure out how to keep the music education actually valuable to something that was interesting and was somewhere in line with what they were doing, knowing that we weren't going to go back and knowing that they weren't going to perform the shows that they'd been working on since the first day we got back in January, has been really difficult. And then you add on top of that, my husband's a teacher too, and he teaches adjunct for a couple of colleges. So, we're trying to figure out how to find quiet time to work with 4 children that are 9, 7, 4, and 3 running around the house. And then, 3 of our children are in school. So we're trying to somehow do schoolwork. And I'd say that I've probably failed real hard on that. So if you're Cricket's teacher and you hear this, I'm sorry that I've been such a loser parent. I've tried, but I kind of had to choose. Was I going to put more effort into my students, or was I going to put more effort into my kids? And I was like, well, I want to provide opportunities for my students, and hopefully my kids reading to them and doing what little bit I can will suffice, and they'll make it up later. And I mean, there's always tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and I think, and I've said this before too, it's like, we have to show each other as teachers and parents grace, right? Because we're all learning this new kind of learning, and and thank goodness that, we have such great teachers in West Virginia that, do adjust, and I'm just really happy. And I hope that this time, the positive about it is just how quickly everyone adapted without a plan, and just, step to the plate, whether you're a parent or a teacher or whatever. And we're just all like in this together, right? Like building relationships that maybe wouldn't have happened if it were for this. So, Jay, how's your day? I mean, you're a social studies teacher, right? So you probably have been pulling maybe some lessons from what's going on a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off by saying, like, we don't have kids at home, so that definitely makes it easier. And for Nicole and all the other teachers I've talked to, like, just God bless you right now, because I know it's hard enough on our end just doing the teaching stuff, but then managing, I just can't imagine, like, young kids at home. I teach middle school, so at least 8th grade, so at least my students know how to use technology, but if you've got a 7-year-old and you're trying to help them figure out how to use, Zoom or Google Classroom or something on Schoology, like that in itself is a lesson. And then just all the schoolwork beyond that. And so it's been tough. For me, something that's been hard is, well, I teach West Virginia studies. And so, we're not that big of a state. So the amount of online resources that are there is small anyway. And then, when you take it by reading level, like I teach 8th grade, but to be honest with you, a lot of my kids are reading below grade level just because I'm at a kind of a high poverty school. And so I need something that's not 8th grade level. And so that narrows down, the choices online even more. So it's been a challenge. I'm frustrated because right now I would have been teaching like the mine wars and labor history, to early 20th century, really the stuff that, like, this is why I signed up to teach West Virginia studies. And I've been racking my brain because all my cool activities that we normally do in the classroom, I can't figure out how to do online. And so it's tricky. A lot of our kids are just kind of not doing all the work because some have realized, oh, my grade can't drop.
Right.
If I had an A or a B before, I don't really care. And to be honest, some of our kids, they have really tough home lives. I really wish they were in school just because I would know that they're safe and they're taken care of. And so that's kind of a worry when they don't log on or we don't hear from them for a few days, like, what's going on, And so I think for a lot of teachers, really the bigger issue is, are my kids safe? Are they healthy? Are they okay? Are they getting food? Is everything like that? And it's kind of Maslow's hierarchy, right? We'll learn about all the learning stuff after that. So it's been a struggle. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. It's not been easy. I don't have kids at home, so it could be so much worse, but it's still not easy.
Yeah. It's, mentioning about, when they don't hear from parents or hear from the students or whatever. A funny story. The other day we were doing an LSIC, Local School Improvement Council, my soapbox, via Zoom. And I had, of course, our principal and the assistant principal. They were both on the Zoom call with me. And in the middle of it, I get a call from the school. I was like, oh, well, that's weird. So, of course, I called back after the meeting was over, and it was a teacher calling to check on my daughter. And I was mentioning to Jay before we started that, you know, my biggest struggle is getting my daughter to respond, to tell them, yes, I'm okay, I'm fine, I don't need anything, because she's turning in her work, but she's not really quick on those email responses. So I can relate, but different situation. Yeah, so I was going to ask what the most challenging task has been over the last few weeks, but Jay's mentioned it. How about you, Nicole? Has there been anything that's particularly challenging for you?
Well, I have to say, you know, bless every mother that is fortunate to stay home and take care of her kids, because that is a job I always thought, oh, I want to be a stay-at-home parent. Now I'm like, send me back to school.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to, you know, there's 6 people in our household. There's my husband and myself and our 4 kids. And, you know, we're trying to stay in the house. We're trying to be as thoughtful as we can, not only for our sake, but for our neighbors and our parents and everyone else. And so cooking 3 meals a day and dealing with the dishes, and don't get me wrong, like my husband does an equal amount. This is not a one-sided household, but it's still for 6 people. And so, you know, kids are messy and they just kind of throw stuff places, and they wear 4 outfits when they don't need to. And when you times that times 4, and we have 1 left potty training, and it's just kind of like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. So that's been kind of rough. Like, that's been the most challenging thing, is figuring out how do stay-at-home parents do it. Like, how do you keep your sanity and still manage to keep everything together, because it's been rough, and we've had 2 parents at home. So, you know, so love your heart and thank you for doing what you do, because I don't think I could do it permanently.
Yeah. So see, it's like this 2-way street of new appreciation, you know, for parents that are doing that normally. And then of course, parents appreciating you also. I mean, I think that's, you know, you have to look at a positive side of things. That's one thing that I can see is nice. Has there been anything that surprised you during this time that's been positive, like something that's come out of it that you're like, oh, wow, I didn't expect this? And maybe there hasn't been.
I've really enjoyed feeling more connected to my friends, like especially my friends that I don't get to see all the time. Mm-hmm. Because, for example, we had a friend accidentally Facebook called a bunch of us, and Jay was in the call too. And we're all like cooking dinner, and we all answer the call. Like, normally you would ignore it, you know, whenever it's like you're not in crisis mode and you need adult contact. But we all answer, and we're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And we just talked for like 3 minutes, and it was like the greatest 3 minutes of my week. So it's been really nice to like see that, you know, we really do care about each other. It's not superficial. And to be able to, I mean, because how often do we really make phone calls? Right. And like, Jay and I have like talked almost every day, and I love his phone calls. I know sometimes he goes, it's your daily phone call, but I really love it, Jay. So thank you. And I had a friend that I work with, and normally when we work together, we don't talk after work, but now that we don't see each other in person, she has a really pretty singing voice. And so we've like sent videos of each other, like singing parts of the songs. Like, I'll start it, then she goes on. I know that's super cheesy, but it's been kind of wonderful. Like, just those little things. The band teacher has recorded himself playing the different parts of the band music, and, you know, made a collage of it and sent it to me. And I'm like, that's amazing. We need to share it with our students. So he did. So the human contact without being in physical contact has been really amazing and surprising.
That's great. That's pretty awesome, actually. So not cheesy. How about you, Jay? Have you come across anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of a different side from some of my students. It's been nice. You know, we haven't had a ton of interaction, of course, not nearly as much as in the classroom, but those that are reaching out and messaging, I feel like I'm seeing a little bit of a different side from them. Either some kids that, you know, weren't super studious before suddenly are kind of caring about the schoolwork and are asking questions about that, but otherwise just hearing a little bit about their families and how things are going. And you know, we ran out of toilet paper, but now we got more, so it's okay. Just stuff like that. And it's silly, but it's just nice to know that they're all right, and kind of see something different than I, don't normally see when I'm out in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear on the elementary school level, I hear there's a lot of show and tell with, pets and different things in their house. So one teacher told me, she goes, it's so bad. I think I'm going to have to break it up into like 3 different Zoom calls because to let them have their time. So, but anyway, and the adults are the same way. I can tell you with my work, when the adults get on the on Zoom, it's the same thing. They hold up their dogs or their cats, and yeah, same thing. So yeah. So we'll get a little bit more serious now. Dig in deep to all this stuff. But so are you concerned? Obviously, you're concerned about what school might look like next fall or next August when everybody goes back. And of course, we hear guidance on the federal level that is starting to come out from the CDC. But West Virginia, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think I guess I'm wondering, have they contacted you all, teachers, because we know sometimes that doesn't happen. Teachers or parents or whoever are not contacted. So do you know of anyone that's been like on the county level even that's been contacted to talk about that and ask what's going right, what's not? No.
No.
I was afraid of that. Yeah, because I guess I'm thinking all these school board meetings are still going on, right? And nobody's necessarily watching, and we have budgets that are being approved, and of course charter schools coming, applications possibly rolling in pretty soon, which I haven't heard of any. We know that there's some people that are looking at that. But and then also the stimulus care act money, like going into the counties, which we don't really know much about that either. I talked to our superintendent the other day, and yeah, they know they're getting some money. The county school's getting some money. They don't know how much. They don't know when. But just do you all have concerns about maybe how it's spent? Like looking at you all as educators should be a part of that plan, I would imagine. And what's going to happen in the fall? Do you think that that's a possibility, or how can even parents or the community kind of rally with you, support each other, and make sure that gets done?
I mean, you would think, especially now, since that we've shown that we want to be active, that we want to be part of the conversation, that we would be invited to the table. But I mean, I'm a county president and I haven't been asked anything, and I represent almost 500 members. And so it is very concerning. And I think as parents, your local superintendent and school board's emails are public. I would send them an email and just say, hey, we know that you're going to be getting some money and we would like to be part of the conversation of how you're going to spend it. Because, I keep on thinking the way it looks, we're going to somehow supposed to be magically doing social distancing in the schools if they try to make us physically be there. And to me, it makes more sense that we need to prepare that we won't physically be in the schools, and that this summer that the state and the state school board should hit the ground running with trying to figure out how can we get internet access to as many households as possible? How can we make sure that, we have devices for children? How can we make sure that we have extra support in whatever way that may be? And not this kind of idealized, we're going to go back and we're going to somehow put these kids 6 feet apart. And because it's not going to happen. My show choir has 35 children in it. And these are 7th and 8th graders. So they're almost adult sized. And I'm blessed that I have a huge classroom, but I am like one out of, thousands of teachers that have that size classroom. Most teachers do not have that. They have little closets that they've carved out, and they have 6, 7, 8 kids crammed in there for their Title I services, and they're all around this little, kidney bean table. There's no way to do that. So I am really concerned about what are we going to do with that money. And, some of the schools that they have shuttered that were community schools, small community schools that whenever they built new ones, the school board authority was really pushing for consolidation. And now it seems that they've backed off of that a little bit. But it would be so much easier to social distance in person, even though that's still a terrible idea. But it would be easier to do that if we had more smaller schools, if we had multiple schools instead of like in Princeton, where, in Mercer County, our Princeton primary, which is the only primary school for that kind of hub, there's like 580 kids in it, and it's just a K through 2. How in the world are you supposed to keep them clean and sanitized? And, because they're not going to be able to wear masks during the day. That isn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I really think that parents need to be proactive, and teachers too. And some of us are on both sides of that coin, but we need to go ahead and start letting them know that and not necessarily, I don't know how to put this that sounds nice, but not like nicely asking, please include me, but I expect to be included, because that's when you get results. Whenever that you say, I know, I am aware that this is coming down, and I'm also aware as a parent and as a taxpayer that I need to be part of this conversation.
See, that's why I like you all so much. Jay, what about you?
Well, I would say it's troubling because, let's be real, nobody knows what they're doing, right? This is a new thing. It's a pandemic. Like, nobody's been through this. And so, I mean, Nicole's right. Like, everybody needs to be a part of this conversation. And teachers, especially at their schools, because schools look so different. I mean, we have schools in my county that were built in the last 10 years. Mine was built in, I think, 1939. There's a huge range of buildings, class sizes, everything. And so if we are going to move back to having things in the school building, for instance, it's going to look different everywhere. Just the procedures, the way you're going to do it. And yeah, Nicole, I mean, I honestly hadn't even thought about it, but like little kids, they're not going to wear masks. Like, there's so many things I think we're not thinking of. Plus the fact, can we just be real that like we're kind of reopening the state, but scientifically, there's no real, in my opinion, real justification for that. I mean, the virus has not gone away. It maybe has plateaued slightly, but it's still here. And so there's a lot to think about, and we've got to be really careful. And I think Nicole's right. Like, we all need to speak up together, because the last thing we want is it to be unsafe, mm-hmm. for kids or their families. And, I hate to say it, but just because somebody is your admin, or even somebody at the county level administration, like in this case, they don't know any better than we do. We're all in this together. It's brand new, and we've got to come together and figure out a way forward. Of course, we want our kids to learn. Of course, we want them to be educated. I mean, that's why we got into this field, but we also want them to be safe. And that's got to be, I think, the primary focus. So the fall, I don't even know where to start. It's going to look very different, but I think the first thing that needs to happen is community conversations, teachers, parents, students, everybody involved, and kind of figure out a way forward. I
see a series of town halls coming.
Virtual, probably.
Yeah, virtual, please. But I think something that, like that Jay was touching upon is like, we have to remember our population, and we have to remember how many grand families we have. And if I understand, which again, it's so hard. I've been trying to keep up with what do we know about the virus, and how does it present itself, and how do you protect yourself? But I mean, I've read that sometimes like it can not show any symptoms for 14 days, if not more. So we have kids that are just infecting each other, taking it home. And then what happens whenever that grandma dies? Right. Who's going to take care of them? I remember several years ago when I was working at a young school, I had a child that was being raised by his great grandparents, and his great grandfather died while that I was teaching him, the great grandmother was not physically able to care for him. So like just someone that wasn't even related to him, a family in his church, had to take him into their home and continue raising him. And, that was just because it was just what it was. But what's going to happen whenever that we have people dying in droves? I mean, there's a reason that even old Justice is keeping nursing homes, closed. It's because that the elderly are more susceptible. And I really think that we need to be smart about this, and we need to plan. We just need to plan like it's the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing whenever that we think about revenue shortfalls and funding. We need to plan for the worst case scenario. We need to really look at what have we done with our budget? Who have we given money to that can afford to give it back? Mm-hmm. Which would be the corporations and the wealthy. And I mean, if you're making $200,000 as a family in West Virginia, you are rich. You are very wealthy. And having, a day-to-day job working at a gas station is not your life. Having a day-to-day job as a teacher is not your life. So we need to be looking to people that can actually afford to put more back in the bucket, because if we strip our public schools anymore, or our public services, all we're doing is hurting our children. We're hurting our people. And just because there's a revenue shortfall doesn't justify hurting our children. It doesn't justify taking services away from the people that need it. What does that make us as a society if we're willing to sacrifice them? So I really think that, I know it's hard, but you have to make your joy, right? You find joy in singing with your friend at 1 a.m. because your sleep schedule's so terrible. So I really think that we need to just kind of prepare that we're going to still be in the midst of it. We don't need to physically be there. What can we do to make sure between now and August or September that our children are more readily, they have the access that they need and they have the support that they need to actually participate? Because now, like myself, I'm just kind of in crisis mode. Okay, well, let me take this 15th phone call about something that's going on with a member, and let me, you peed your pants again, and let me cook this meal, and let me, it's just too much because I wasn't prepared for it. But I'm starting to get the hang of it. But if we prepare our communities, we have a couple of months to do that. We have a couple of months to prepare people to actually participate in the educational process and to support them in a way that's meaningful.
Yeah, and Jay and you both support that kind of ground up, power of people listening to the stakeholders and people that are actually boots on the ground, like teachers and so on. And I just wonder, are you worried that maybe there's going to be a special session called over the summer, and not to raise fear or anything, but what would that be? What good would come of that if they did something like that and they once again swooped in from the top, made decisions about what fall is going to look like without asking people? I mean, it's come through my head a few times, to be honest with you, and I think about that. I'm like, oh no, please no. So, are you worried about that?
Yeah, I mean, Jenny, I hadn't thought specifically about a special session and what they might do with schools. I mean, part of me would like a special session just to release some of the rainy day funds, because I'm very worried about.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Our budget. But yeah, and there is a fear, and I think already seeing a push for this nationally. I think there was something in the Washington Post a day or two ago about, hey, virtual schools seem to be working. Oh, in the fall, we might not be able to start up again. Let's move towards this. And there's this worry that kind of the privatizers are going to, swoop in and kind of use this crisis as a way to move us more towards virtual charters or, whatever it would be. And I know we're going to get to it, but thinking about budget crunch in the future, saying well, maybe you don't need a art teacher or I don't know, whatever class it would be, to, and say, well, we'll do that online now, and we'll put 300 kids with one online instructor and it'll be fine and you can save money. And there's a real worry about that. And I think people need to realize that's not crazy to be thinking about that. I've used this example before, but if you look at New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, I mean, they basically privatized the entire city. It went all charter. It used to be a city school district. So people will use opportunities like that. It's happened in Puerto Rico too after their hurricanes to try to move in and kind of, unfortunately, make money off this crisis situation. So I do have a real fear of something like that happening. And I think, again, this is why we need parents, teachers, everybody coming together and kind of demanding, public schools for the public good for all our kids, and pushing back on that.
Yeah, and to me, it seems like perfect time to do it because parents are realizing it's not that easy, right? I mean, we may have to do some of it in the fall, but is this what you want for, schools? So yeah, I think it's a good way to kind of like nudge parents that maybe didn't have charter schools and things like that on their radar. I know it was hard for me. I'm a parent organizer, but it still was hard to kind of like get them to relate, because those carrots they dangle and those bells and whistles that they sound like a charter school is, but we know is not. So yeah, I think taking advantage of this time to kind of push some of those issues forward is right on the money to do. Yeah.
Well, that word that whenever that Jay said demand, that's right. We should make, as parents, as educators, a list of demands, a list of what we expect our schools to look like in the fall. And there's nothing wrong with that, because whenever that you put out a list of demands and you're talking about them and they can be suited to what people actually want, you're making your concerns and what you feel is important known. And so whenever that special sessions are called, it can't be this whole, well, I know what's best for my community without like any input, because you've already put your input out there. Mm-hmm. So to be proactive about it is really the best thing that we can do. We can say, we want, internet to be treated like a utility so that it will be paid for families that have that need. We want internet access expanded immediately. We want whatever it is so that children can be serviced in the way that is appropriate to their educational needs. But I do think that we need to make demands. We need to make a list of demands. We need to talk about it. We need to have calls about it. We need to publicly put it out there, because whenever that, unfortunately, our legislature comes in, they come in with their own agenda, which doesn't have anything to do with us. And they feel like that they have been given this free reign to make decisions for all of us. Well, you voted for me. You're still accountable to us. You're still accountable to what we as a community need and want. You are just our representative. You're supposed to be the one that speaks for us. But it should still be our voice that comes out of your mouth. So I really feel like that is a perfect word that Jay used. We need to demand. We don't need to ask, and we don't need to retroactively try to fix it, because that's where you have problems. For years, we ignored PEIA, the Public Employees Insurance Agency for West Virginia public workers, and we ignored how that our wages were staying the same because of inflation, and our healthcare costs just kept on ballooning and ballooning. And then when it came to a crisis point, and everybody was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't live in my home anymore. I'm going to have to leave the state. What are we going to do? And, we had to, in order to get them to listen to us, because calling and asking nicely wasn't working, we had to make demands. We had to organize our people. We had to picket. We had to have town halls. We had to talk to each other. And we were successful because that we talked to parents, that we talked to community members, that they knew that our goal was to make sure that there were teachers in every classroom that were actually certified to do what they need to do. And Jay's comment about, eliminating art and music, that's a real fear. I mean, if you look at other states, they've killed it years and years ago. And also, foreign language is becoming more and more difficult to find people for those positions. So they've tried to do that. They've tried to do the whole virtual schooling, one teacher, several hundred students, and it's a complete failure. And it doesn't work. And virtual charter schools have stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from states. So all of these things are poor ideas, and they're just trying to take advantage of our people and the situation. So I really think that we need to make those demands. We need to talk to each other, and we need to be proactive about what we want and make sure that it's known, so other people aren't making decisions for us that have no clue what we need or want.
Yeah. And I wonder how, so now looking at it, because I mean, officially the school year is coming to a close, but how would that look from an organizer's standpoint? I mean, would it be appropriate to just start talking to parents as you all are Zooming or having conversations about the kids? Hey, have you been to a school board meeting lately? I mean, I don't know if that's quite the time or place to do it, but I feel like this is we're on the verge of some real change if we can grab it. And like you said, just those demands have to be said now before someone makes those choices for us. And, we had a whole set. I mean, you all as educators and us as parents is we want reduced classrooms, sizes, and we want, all this, the social emotional help. We want you all especially to get paid what you deserve. But it just seems like now there's even a whole set of new things, but there are also things that can be brought together, with that original list of wants or demands. So I see potential. But I don't know what the answer is. I guess I'm just maybe picking your all's brains, because I can certainly organize parents to get on board and support teachers, but what are your all's thoughts? Do you all have anything going on in your head that maybe that I could use to help you all?
I mean, I think we all want the same thing, well-funded schools where our kids are safe and can learn. I think everyone has always wanted smaller class sizes, and now that's going to seem really key with the virus. So I really think almost now more than ever, we have so much common ground with parents in this. And, I don't know a lot of specifics, but I think the first key is we just got to start talking to each other and thinking about things. I think it would be great to Benny, to facilitate some, maybe some big town hall discussion meetings this summer. I mean, it seems like it's going to have to be virtually, but get as many parents and teachers together as we can and start thinking about what are the main things we want to see, in the schools in the fall and beyond. What are the main important factors? Because Nicole's right, you've got to jump out in front of it. Otherwise, you're just reacting to whatever is done and trying to play catch up. And I'm trying not. Yeah, I know we're going to get to it, but we know there's going to be a budget crunch. So we know the axe is going to come down somewhere. And we really cannot afford. I mean, our schools don't have enough money anyway. We cannot afford for it to be our schools.
Right. Well, and we'll go into that. So what's that looking like in your mind? What they might cut, and talk about PEIA. What's happened with that? I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do the second part first. So PEIA, they were already predicting. Ooh, I wish I had it in front of me because I don't want to say it wrong, but a significant increase in cost fiscal year, I believe 2022, which would start next summer. So July of 2021. So this was kind of already our last year of fairly stable things. We may have been bought a little time because I think, kind of elective procedures have been put on hold. So some of the costs probably have gone down, but also funding, has dropped as well. So the main problem with PEIA is, in case people probably haven't been paying as close attention as we have, is it just kind of got pushed to the side. The governor, after our strike, he put some more money to it. We had the PEIA task force, but nothing was really ever resolved. And so now, conveniently, after the election in November, that's coming back. And I think people were thinking, well, he'll probably put more money towards it. And honestly, like, the governor and the legislature may have been thinking that too. I don't know. But now there's going to be a real budget crunch. And so it'll be interesting to see what gets the axe and what doesn't. So definitely concerned about PEIA, and then just about, school funding in general. We have the school aid formula, so certain things can't drop too low, but still there's a limited amount of money, right? And so even if maybe some of the school funding doesn't get cut, what does that mean for DHHR and, foster kids and families, which we have every year in our classes and things. So it's kind of all circular, it may look like, oh, great, they spared this, but it's going to hit something else. So it's a real concern right now.
And I think, thinking about that, knowing, because we know that there is going to be, huge holes in the budget because of the lack of revenue. So what we really should be pushing for is for things like coal severance, for the natural gas, for even a wealth tax on households that, can obviously afford a 1% tax if you have $200,000 or more. We need to, those are called progressive revenue sources, because they don't affect the regular everyday person. So things like sin taxes, like on cigarettes or alcohol, or food taxes or things like that, those are regressive, because people, regular everyday West Virginians that, are in the poor to moderately making okay money portion, we pay more of our salary in taxes for regular everyday things that everybody pays taxes on than the wealthy do. So, whenever that we go out to eat, it's for a lot of families, that's a big deal. It's a big treat to be able to go out every now and then. And the taxes and the amount that you're paying on that food is more to your budget than it is to someone that's making $100,000 a year, as far as percentage wise. And the caucus recently did a call with the West Virginia Center for Policy and Budget with Ted Bettner. And he was talking about that, about how it was such a higher percentage of people's income that went to these taxes that we all pay, whether it be DMV fees or things like that. So the people that can afford it should be paying more, and we should demand it now before that rolls in, because such things as the rainy day fund, that is a one-time injection of money. There is a finite amount of money in that fund. So if we deplete it, there's nothing to fill it back up. There's nothing to fill that well back up. So I really feel like that we as parents and as teachers and as community members, that's one of the things that we are going to have to demand, is that they reinstate these taxes on people that can afford it. There are many, many places in West Virginia that out-of-state landowners own more land than actual West Virginians own land. And the amount of taxes that those people pay is pennies on the dollar compared to the regular person that owns their half acre. So, there is revenue to be had. In places like Alaska, which is a resource colony like us, they have made sure to put money aside for these extractive industries for their people. And in West Virginia, since our inception, we haven't done that. We've had legislators that are in the pockets of the coal companies and the gas companies, and they don't want to lose that funding to get reelected, and they're really not on our side. So we're going to have to force them to make sure that they are getting the money from the people that can afford it, because it is almost impossible to care for a family on $600 a week, if you can get it. And how many small businesses haven't even been able to get the injection of money? I firmly believe that if our federal government can throw trillions of dollars for Wall Street one day, not even break a sweat, I mean, how many salaries would $1 trillion cover? That's such a massive amount of money. It's I don't even know if I'll wrap my head around it completely. You know, for us regular folks, you know, $5,000 is a huge amount of money that would pay off a credit card or finish paying off our car or make it so that we can fix the leak in our roof or whatever it is. And if you're talking about millions of dollars, that's a whole nother thing. And then whenever you talk about billions of dollars, you know, to my understanding, we only have one billionaire living in the state, and he's our governor. So, you know, whenever you're talking about trillions of dollars, you know, I feel like Dr. Evil, trillions of dollars. Like, yes. Like, it's such a massive amount of money that if our federal government is able to just drop it like it's nothing, why isn't it going to the people that need it? You know, we've been fortunate as teachers that we've been able to work from home, but many of our neighbors haven't been able to. They've either had their hours cut significantly, they've been furloughed. You know, if you're a server, I don't even know if the server, I was a server in 12, 15 years ago. And at that point in time, your wages were $2.13 an hour, which I'm sure it hasn't raised much. And then you get the tips on top of that. So I'm thinking, what are these people doing that aren't, you know, that they're just doing curbside? And no, I don't think we should reopen the restaurants, but I do think that 100% of everyone's wages should be covered because the money is there and it doesn't have to come from us.
Right.
So
right.
whenever we're talking about school funding, it's the same thing. We need to recognize that the money is there, whether they try to act like it is or not. It is there. It's always there for the wealthy. So why isn't it there for our communities and our students? And we're gonna have to force the issue. We're gonna have to really talk about it, really look at the numbers, and make sure we demand that our schools are funded the way that they need to be, so that we're not cutting positions that we'll never get back. Because once it's gone, folks, it's gone. It doesn't come back. It's just like the community schools, right? It's going to have to be a whole other chain of people forcing the state to reinstate these community schools if we're going to really talk truly about reducing class sizes.
Yeah, I want to just echo a little bit about that. You know, I'm a history teacher, so I think we should obviously learn from the past. And just the recent past, if you look at the recession that kind of started in 2008, you know, I think everybody has to think about how schools are funded. It's tax revenue. Well, if people don't have jobs, there's no income tax. They're not buying as much, so sales tax goes down. And so many states, tax revenue plummeted, and it took a year or two because of the way state budgets catch up for it really to hit schools and public services. But 2009, 2010, 2011, a lot of the states lost so much money for schools. And one thing that I remember in the reporting about kind of the Red for Ed movement over the last couple of years, they talked about other states, and they noted how in some of the states, I think Arizona is one, you know, the level of school funding 10 years later after the recession was still like lower than it had been before. They just, like Nicole said, they cut and they never restored it later. So we have to really watch for that. And then, like Nicole was saying, you know, they've been cutting taxes here since, I mean, recently, like about 2006, 2007-ish, you know, when they cut the business franchise tax and the corporate net income tax. And we have, I mean, it's been long enough. We have evidence, like they said they did it to bring in jobs. We had, now definitely, but even before that, we had fewer jobs than before they did it. So it's not working. You know, they cut the steam coal severance tax last year, and then Bob Murray's whole company, which was one of the main recipients, they filed for bankruptcy. So this is not, it's not helping. It's not doing any good. Why don't we look at revenue options and raise revenue in some ways that will help schools and help public services, but will not hurt regular working West Virginians? There's hundreds of millions of dollars in tax cuts and things we could reverse that would help everyone. And I say look at history because I want that to be the difference between now and 2008. In 2008, in so many places across the country, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is bad. Yeah, we're all going to have to cut back. When in reality, I don't think that should have been the answer because, you know, it was a recession caused by things that people did. I get that this is a pandemic. No one saw this coming. It's a different situation, but it doesn't mean we have to respond by saying, oh, it's okay to cut millions of dollars from public schools. Oh, it's okay to cut millions of dollars from, you know, students who need it and foster care or higher ed or any of these things. Nicole's right. The money's there. We just have to get them to prioritize it and put it in the right place. And that comes from people coming together and organizing for it. Please, 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 if we can teach you anything as teachers in this state for the last few years, do not expect your legislature to do the right thing on their own. Oh my gosh, no. Like, not to say that there are not some great people up there. There are, but like, guys, we got to get organized. We got to come together. We got to push back because they're not going to make just the right decisions by themselves.
Right. And be proactive is the lesson too, because we tend to be, you know, reactive and you can't do that every time. So these things, these strategies, these opportunities and resources you all are talking about are very much something that we could get ahead of the game. And at this moment, when we need to very badly in the middle of the pandemic, and people throw that to me a lot. Oh, well, why are you saying this? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Well, I'm saying it because we are in the middle of a pandemic and it's going to end. And then what? So I totally agree. Yeah, organizing is definitely going to be the key. It's funny, you all have this job security now because, you know, we have to, where other careers don't, like you mentioned, servers and people like that. For me as a community organizer, it's kind of job security because when people screw up on top, you have to have people like us that are on there kind of like, you know, empowering people from the bottom to like do these things, like organize for what's to come. So I'm in awe of you all as organizers as well as educators. I mean, that's just two hats that are just, you know, amazing. So we didn't have a crisis plan. So what do you think, like, you know, a lot of the things you're talking about, like town halls is a good thing to start building on a crisis plan for the fall. Communication's always, you know, at the top of my list, so talking to parents and talking to educators, which I think is happening on a smaller level. I've put out surveys trying to kind of get an idea of what support is still needed or was needed that maybe wasn't there. And I'm not talking about educators, I'm talking about just the system, you know, transportation, and of course, people that don't have Wi-Fi, and are there parents that are actually using their phone data instead of Wi-Fi just because they want to make sure that their kids have the same tools as the other kids. So it's, I mean, the list goes on and on, right? I guess what's next? I mean, what do we do? What would you say we need to do besides just strategize? What would be your next step? So if we three, because us three agree. So what would we do? Would we plan a town hall first? Would we send out surveys to every county, like every parent, every educator, to find out what their needs or what they see for schools? Because I mean, my thing is, there's so many of these Board of Education meetings that are happening, and they're not necessarily they're supposed to be advertised, but who's paying attention? How do we get people to pay attention to those, first of all, on the local level?
And I mean, one thing, and Nicole just shared this yesterday or day before on Facebook about cuts that were happening in Roanoke, Virginia. One thing I think might be helpful is to kind of maybe wake people up and let them see around the country already the cuts that are coming for next year. And because I think everybody's just, they're so busy just trying to stay afloat right now with all the stressors in their lives. I totally get that. But I think we need people to kind of realize, oh my gosh, no, this could get a lot worse as far as funding and other issues, and we need to pay attention. So some states seem to be ahead of the game on some of that, unfortunately, and maybe even just getting that out there so it wakes people up and they realize, oh, could West Virginia be next? Yes,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's it. Education's always good, right? So educating people, and right now it's a little bit more difficult. It's not like, and in a perfect world, we could actually canvas and do those type of things and go door to door and let people know. But it's, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Of course, one of the things I'm trying to get to is having the counties, have their fourth quarter LSIC meeting, because that's a perfect opportunity in my, head, that where they're already mandated, they're supposed to be meeting. Only nobody on the county level or the state level is really giving guidance on that right now. But that, to me, those are your stakeholders right there. They're public meetings. You can have a town hall right there within those, have a Zoom town hall or whatever, with the LSICs. And to me, that would be a good vessel to try. But it takes so much, on the statewide level, to pull that together. I struggle with that sometimes. I have I had a parent in Berkeley County who was doing her Zoom LSIC meeting tonight, but I haven't seen one in Kanawha County yet, or I haven't seen one in, other counties. So it's just so hard. So I think leaning on each other to support and build this movement on the local level is really so key. Yeah. So I want to know, so why did you all in particular decide I want to make a run for that state union position? It's a big question.
Nicole, you want to go first? You want me?
I can't. It's raining really hard, so if I fuzz out, I'm sorry. So actually, what made me want to run was I really wanted to run for president. Like, I was like, man, I'm gonna run for president. It's gonna be amazing. We need a woman in that position. And I talked to my husband, and this came about in the summer of 2018. So like after the strike, I was just so energized. And before, I had always thought, well, that position really isn't open to someone like me. Like, you can't have kids and be in that position. I haven't taught long enough to be in that position. I've only been teaching for 10 years. Maybe I don't know really what's going on. And kind of over that summer, I was like, I do know what's going on, and I can trust myself, and I want to run. And so I talked to my husband, and Jay and I had 8 bazillion conversations about this. And, my children are very young. And my husband was like, please don't make me be a single parent. And I agreed that it wasn't necessarily the time for me, but it is the time for someone like Jay. And I do feel like that I would be a great vice president. At WVEA, your vice president isn't on full release. So you don't quit teaching, like you still teach, and you participate in a less capacity. But, I've already been so active in my local union, in my state union. I've went to national conferences, very active with the caucus. I was like, this is just kind of another way for me to make sure that mothers and teachers and people that feel like I do, that it is appropriate to demand and to organize and to make sure that we are not accepting things, that we are not accepting this lie that things can't get better or that there's not money. And so I felt like that now was the time that, we knew that this position was going to be up. And I was like, I have given much of my life to the union. I mean, this is a story I've told before, and whenever my son, he was born in February of 2016, and we had a president's conference that summer, and he was breastfeeding and he would not take a bottle. And it was really important to me that I went to the president's conference. So I just brought him along, and anybody that's ever breastfed knows that it's like really hard to get comfortable. So I brought my little boppy pillow and I sat cross-legged on the floor, and I like breastfed him on the floor of the Marriott while I'm listening to speakers at the president's conference. And that's important. Like, we need people in leadership. And currently now AFT, their vice president is a mother to young children, but currently our presidents are, older men. And we don't in WVEA, we don't have a woman in the vice president position, and we haven't for at least 12 years, if not longer. So I felt like that now was the time, and I still feel like it's the time. And whether that we win or not, I'm going to continue to be active in my union and to fight for public education and to fight for our students and for our profession.
I knew she'd do such a good job. I thought Nicole would be a great president, and in a state, where it's 78% female teaching force, we need women leading our unions. And so I'll say we, because it's really more than just me, decided to run because we saw what happened in 2018 and we saw how powerful we were. But I think after that, we felt like things kind of went back to status quo when we just decided, like, that's not what we want. We want the strike to really be kind of a foundation for something that we can grow above and build on. And so Nicole's right. We saw that there was going to be a new election for leadership this year. So we just decided, hey, we feel like it's time. We've learned a lot from the strike, and we've learned about how powerful we are when we come together. And so, we decided to run. So here we are. And Nicole's right. Win or lose, we're trying to give a new vision for what we want our union to be. And so if we win, great. And if we lose, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and organizing and bringing people together. So it's our goal.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched you all, and you're such good leaders, and everyone looks up to you. So yeah, regardless, I'm sure you'll keep doing what you're doing. But I'm very excited. You all make a great team anyway. So very, very proud to know you both. So is there anything else that you wanted to mention? I want to play a little game with you in a minute, just a real quick game. But did we miss anything that you all want to talk about? I know one thing that came to mind as you all were talking a while ago was, like, just as people do lose their jobs or are home all of a sudden, and it's, we talk about school and trauma. It's probably going to have a new level of trauma, right, when everybody gets back, and kids that probably didn't experience some sort of trauma will have experienced trauma on some level, being at home or whatever. So I can't even imagine the support you all will need, added on top. And I don't want to, stop on a negative note or whatever, but I'm just saying, let's add that to our list of demands, is, more help for you all in the classroom and to help our kids. So I just wanted to say that. Can you all think of anything else? I think we need like a session just on privatization and charter history. I think that would be a good thing to do on a future Ed Talks.
I think, Jenny, I think you're right. I think there's probably a lot we could learn from some states that are unfortunately farther down that road. Mm-hmm. Because it's been in some places for quite a while now, and I don't think we really understand here all the ways that they're coming at it. And so, yes, agreed.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else, Nicole, you want to add before we play my game?
Me too. But no, I do think that what Jay said is absolutely right, and something that we don't do very well as Americans in general is we don't tend to look to other people's ideas and say we can do that. It seems like we're kind of like 70 years behind everybody else. So I really think that we should be reaching out to these states that have had really severe consequences from privatization initiatives and figure out what does that look like? Have they been able to roll any of that back? Which is more than likely going to be like, no, which should scare you. But I really think that would be a great conversation to have, is just a little bit more about what privatization is in other places and what it could potentially be here.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it could be like almost an education series on those things, like talking about the different topics and how to take those and make sure that they don't come to our state or happen to our state, is part of like a crisis plan of some sort, which should have happened in the beginning. We should have had some sort of prep there, but anyway, they don't ask us, right? So I'm going to show you a few questions people put up. So Jay, this is for you. This is Brett Masters. Can you see that?
This is cool. I can put the question up. Is there an event or some part of West Virginia history that can possibly relate to what we're going through today with COVID-19? Can you a lesson?
It's part 2 of that. He corrected himself.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Spanish flu, but that was more, I don't know West Virginia specific, what they did here. With that, but I think we're good. This is kind of maybe a good bad thing about West Virginia, is we're good at responding to crises here. I don't know. I'm just thinking of so many of the kind of disasters that have happened. Hawks Nest or Buffalo Creek. Or and some of the other mining explosions and disasters, Upper Brig Branch, we're good though at supporting each other. Even look at the flood in 2016 and coming together and helping each other. And so I don't know if there's anything specific to coronavirus, but I think with our students, showing them in the past how communities came together and supported each other and did what they needed to do in these times would be really valuable. I mean, I'm struck. I've told you I'm trying to teach some mine wars right now, and I'm struck by how just the wives and the families of the miners, everything they put up with and the ways they supported each other when they got kicked out of company towns and had to live in tents and got shot at by people with machine guns and had to duck down into trenches they dug in the bottom of their tents and stuff. It's amazing the way we endure here and we support each other. And so I think if there's anything to learn from it, it's just that we've all got to have each other's backs and we've all got to support each other in this.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen that on just the little Facebook group that we created for food access. It's just to watch. We have it streamlined in a website, which is great, but it's actually that group. I call it virtual community center, where you see folks someone will post, I need this, I'm in this county, and they'll just zoom right in. And it's I use the word Zoom. I hate to use the word Zoom anymore. But they go right in and they help. And it's just really a great thing to see on that face of that group. I've really, that's been a positive thing that's come out of it. So you're absolutely right. West Virginians always help West Virginians, and that's how we get through and recover. From the community part of it. So that's great. So I don't really have any questions. There's some comments you all can read afterwards, which are kind of cool, but I want you all to play West Virginia State Testing Ed Talks Edition with me. All right, you ready? I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Now, I will tell you, the last person or last duo that did a state testing with me, the winner got a kinship t-shirt. Or she is, it's on order. And yes, and it was a woman, Nicole. It was a woman. So let's see who can answer this first. How many state board members are there?
9?
Yay, 9, Nicole. Winner. All right, ready? This is just an estimate. Now these are based on balanced scorecard 2019. So just estimates. Okay, I'm not going to hold you to the number. Y'all are sweating, aren't you?
Yeah.
No judgment. I had to look them up. Okay. How many students are enrolled in West Virginia schools? Just a ballpark.
About 65,000 students.
How many?
65,000.
All right, I'm gonna guess more than that. I was thinking like 200 something thousand.
265,755.
Together. Look, put it together. We were exactly on it.
Together.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's why I was like, what? Because I thought, well, did I not hear it too? Because that would have been incredible. All right, number 3. So it's 1 for 1. What about the state graduation rate? What percentage?
It's really high. About 95%.
Jay, do you have an answer?
I don't have anything better than Nicole. I'll agree with her.
Okay, it's 90%. I might have to give that to Nicole since she said it first, but I might tie it. Let's see how this goes. All right, number 4. About how much, you both might know this, about how much is spent on each student, the total, like their per pupil.
I think about $12,000.
Yeah, I wanted to say 11,000 something.
It's about 12.
She said 12. I'm going to give it to Nicole.
Yeah, it's like right at 12.
12,244 was the last number that I got. All right. Okay. How many schools are in West Virginia? You only got one question after this.
I think 700 something.
Nicole, you have a guess?
I think about, yeah, I think it's about 1,200.
It is 657. So this one will go to Jay because he had the closest number. So and well, that was back in October. That was 2019. So I think you're right, Jay. I think it's closer to 700 now, like I want to say 730. I don't know for sure. All right. This is gonna be the tough one. I want to see how many. This is like the lightning round. How many? So try and name the last 5 state superintendents, including the current one.
Okay,
Birch
Payne, Martirano, if I'm saying it right.
Juria Markle was one.
And then was it Payne before her again?
No, so there were like a couple in there that were like one Heinlein. I'd never heard of him before. I had to look this up. He served for about, I think, a month.
Oh.
Before they brought on Ferris, Ferris served right before Martriano. So,
okay.
All right, who got more? I wasn't keeping. We'll just like say that's a bonus. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna call 1, 2. Nicole, winner, chicken dinner. Congratulations. So the last contestant, she loves kinship shirts. So if you'd like a kinship shirt, that is what I shall gift you. But if you would like something else locally, I can gift you that too. She was trying to support local businesses, which I appreciate.
I love surprises. So whatever you want to give me, I'm happy with.
Awesome. Then I shall do that. All right. Well, this has been fun, and I really want to do a series. I want to do, I think we can kind of like scheme together and do something really cool and maybe get a head start on those town halls. I think that would be wonderful to pull parents and teachers and students actually together and find out what's going on. What do they see? So anyway, I thank you. And you all have been great. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
And we appreciate you, Jenny.
Yeah,
I appreciate
for real.
you. Well, thank you. And well, if I were an educator and was a part of the union, they need like a parent, like I don't know. I said this to Fred like one time. I said, you all need like some sort of parent honorary like membership. So you all need that. When you all get elected, that should be your first item of business. So Jenny Anderson can join. Anyway, thank you all for being my guests. And then on Thursday, I have Dr. Kim White and a parent, Lee Pennington. And we're going to talk about trauma and mental health and how to support educators and parents and students right now during this crisis and in the fall, kind of what we were sort of talking about a little bit ago. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right. Thank you, Jenny.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.